Good morning. It is Sunday, January 23rd, 2022. There's a lot of glare coming in the front window in our little home office today. We got an accumulation of snow, which is a rarity in this part of the country. But it's a good day to be snuggled up inside and warm and safe, and I hope everybody is all of those things this morning, this Sunday morning. I invite you to pause the video for a moment and get elements for us to share communion together, if you can. A bread and a cup of some sort. I'm using a little piece of cereal and a cup of juice. And I invite you to find whatever elements are available in your home on this snow day and grab those things and then come back and we'll get started. Let's begin this morning with a prayer. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for this day. We thank you that though our community is still separated by our desire to keep people safe and healthy, we are united in our love and appreciation for you and for one another. We're united in our love for our church, for our church family, for our community. We are united in our desire to serve and to love, to help our neighbors, to reach out on behalf of our church and on your behalf, oh God, to give and to love and to serve, to lift up, to share some good news. So wherever we find ourselves this morning, God, we may feel lonely, we may feel separated, we may feel some distance between, but we're grateful that that distance is bridged by your grace, bridged by technology that allows us to concentrate and spend some time together, and bridged by your enormous love for us. It is in that love that we gather today, that we spend some time together. And we ask you to bless us. In Jesus' name we pray it. Amen. I've been reading in the Gospel of Mark the last couple of weeks. And I'm back at the Gospel of Mark this morning. Chapter 1, verses 14 through 20. I invite you to take a look at those. If you want to open a Bible and read that, that's fine. I want you to kind of get the gist of the way that Mark's Gospel's narrative carries believers and non-believers into relationship with Jesus, what he did, how he did, what his message was, and his impact. Because as we study those things more closely, we realize that those very same methods, those same activities, those same lessons are very much needed today. Clergy in our disciples' churches are required to have an advanced degree to be the senior minister, the lead pastor. Every one of us has met at some point with a search committee, a personnel committee, a chair and a vice chair of the elders, the board, CMF, CYF leadership, other staff at a church. We've all been asked if at some point, if we have any reservations at all about serving a new church, any concerns that need to be brought as we think about being in relationship together as church and pastor. And the answer, of course, from the clergy side is typically no, because we want the new job. To be honest, the answer, do you have any reservations to serving in ministry, should always be yes. How can anybody possibly do all the work that is ahead of us? How can anybody possibly be equipped to do all the work of leading a church, People trust their minister. People listen to, at least at some point. They seek out counsel from their minister. And at this point in the pandemic, when no church in the entire world has figured out what the church will look like, is it even possible to be a minister? In our country, and the conversations and the tone of our shared experience together in our country, can we agree on anything? Basic facts? Can we confide in one another? Can we trust one another at all? Most ministers these days I know have been told something along the lines of, you don't speak out enough, preacher. Or, kind of went to meddling there, preacher. You're speaking out a little too much. You need to tone it down a little bit. One extreme or the other. And typically those who say those things are directly in the path of the message that's being conveyed. And it's hard to get it right. It's difficult. And this is not about me as ordained clergy. I'm as energized and happy and excited about the opportunities ahead for the church that I serve as I've ever been. I look forward to continuing ministry into the new year, but I don't have a clue what that's going to look like. Not a clue. There are some things that I'd like to see happen, but are they possible? There are a lot of things I don't know, and I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who feel at a loss right now. One thing that I do know is there are people at this very moment, people that you know well, people in your circle of influence, people in your community, maybe even in your household, people that you don't know, people that we've never met, who need Christian community like you and I experience at First Christian Church in Rocky Mount. They need companionship and to be welcomed at a place. And you and I know that because we are welcome and we're the welcomers at our church. There are people that, regardless of background or history, would be changed for the good by gathering around our communion table, by knowing you, by experiencing the love of God in our community of faith. How to do that and what that looks like, it is very difficult for me to say because things are different. And the more I want things to be the way that they were, the more frustrated I'm getting because they're not that way anymore. Mark was the first gospel to be shared and written down. It started as small chapters, 1 or 2 pages at a time. They'd be bundled together and shared out and copied. It was used as source material for Matthew and Luke and for Paul's writing too. Mark was in a hurry. He had a sense of urgency. The prolific use of the word immediately, as you read through the first 2 chapters of Mark, the word immediately jumps out at you because he had places to go and he had things to tell you. And he used that sense of urgency to convey the pace at which Jesus was moving. At the beginning of his ministry, Jesus calls 4 fishermen at the Sea of Galilee. These are working class fellas: Simon Peter, Andrew, James, John. We don't know what it was about Jesus that led them to leave their homes, leave their employment, leave their families to follow Jesus. Maybe because he had support from other people. Maybe because he came out of a community. Jesus had resources. Maybe he was able to take the guys and keep them at a level of compensation just like that they were before. We don't know the unemployment rate in the ancient Near East and North Africa at that time, but it's fair to say that the average man was open to the opportunity of better work. Was it a job? Did they know him already? Had they heard about him? Did his mother's cousin's best friend know who Jesus was? Did they know anything about him at all? Or was this their very first contact with him? Clearly there was something compelling about Jesus, because it's astonishing. They just picked up and left. No idea where he was taking them, no idea where it would go. They followed Jesus, and immediately they left their nets behind and followed him. And as far as we can tell, all the people that Jesus called to be his companion were ordinary people. As far as we can tell, he didn't do background checks and determine education and IQ levels, criminal background, financial details, professional skills. There were no assessment tools, no online forms. There was a man and an invitation and a response. He picked people like you and like me, and they responded. And they were anything but perfect. Multiple times, Mark says that the disciples misunderstood him. The crowds didn't understand him. They hesitated to follow him. They didn't listen. They did not do what he asked them to do. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. They were slow to act, and they often got everything wrong. But those would be the people. Those would be the people who would be invited to continue Jesus' work. Ordinary people like you and like me. They had one thing in common. They were called. Man, invitation, response. God's call is not limited to people who wear stole. It's not limited to ministers or the ordained class. God calls every single one of us to do some kind of ministry, some kind of following. If you're a Christian, you're a minister. If you're in the process of becoming a Christian, you're in the process of becoming a minister. They are synonymous. They are the same. I'm not qualified. Absolutely true. Yeah, absolutely true. I'm not qualified. Yep. That's your qualification. Simon, Peter, Andrew, James, John were not qualified to do the things that Jesus was going to ask them to do. Not at all. Not in the least. The calling of these first disciples, these four, is proof. It's evidence that God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. Can you imagine leaving everything that you know to just get up and follow? Most of us, truth be told, would find it very hard to leave work and family and friends, not even pack a bag, to venture out into an uncertain future. And as I read their story, I have to pause and think, does that mean that I'm a failure at being a disciple? Does that mean I'm a failure at being a minister? If Christian and minister are synonymous, am I a failure at that? Because I'm not all excited about leaving behind the warmth and comfort of my home for something that is unknown. Is that even something that Jesus wants us to do? Is that even something that faithful folks do now? At least are we less faithful than Andrew and Peter and James and John? Are they an example of something that we aspire to? In the first days of the movement, following Jesus meant physically following him, going on the road, going from place to place, learning from him, serving him, helping him, serving others. After Jesus' death and resurrection, following him wasn't a travel itinerary anymore. You were in your place, but you imitated his actions. As movements grow and leaders are no longer present for that, movements adapt and they change and they talk less about listening to, and they change more to sharing with. But it's still the same concept, isn't it? Person, invitation, response. We do that all the time. You want to go see a movie? You want to go try that new restaurant? I read a new book the other day. Have you seen that new movie? We do that all the time. I've got a recipe. I've got an idea. I've got a funny thing to show you on Facebook. We follow Jesus just like they did. But we do it by becoming a teacher or a mentor to a teacher, by volunteering at the senior center or the elementary school or filling the food box at church. We follow by looking out for people who always seem to be excluded, and we go sit with them or invite them to sit with us. People who are on the outside, we find ways for them to be brought to the inside. Some of us follow by doing a job that we love as best we can to help other people. Some of us follow by doing a job we hate because it supports our family and we keep doing it. Sometimes we follow by being generous with what we have, generous with our time, generous with our spirit. Some of us are infectious. You and I can name 10 people that as soon as you're around them, you feel better. You feel enthusiastic. They're contagious in a good way. We follow by listening to those around us and responding with encouragement and care and love and hope. We follow Jesus still, immediately sometimes, here and now, because there's a need right in front of us and we feel it. We just do it. Not even thinking about it. And the truth is, we can follow Jesus in all these different situations and circumstances because he was so easy to imitate. Person, invitation, response. All those different circumstances, all those places that he went, he treated others with the same regard, love, and patience as everybody else. Equal opportunity, giver of grace. And we can follow him by doing the same thing, by loving the same way, by giving the same way. It's the heart of what it means to be Christian, is to try and treat others as Jesus did. Because to be Christian is to be a minister. Embracing the values and principles of inclusiveness and love and forgiving and healing and hope. Albert Schweitzer, I remember my dad talking about Albert Schweitzer and reading his book in seminary and The Quest for Historical Jesus. And one of the quotes in there is, "He comes to us as one unknown, without a name as of old, by the lakeside. He came to those men who knew him not. He speaks to us the same word, follow me. He sets us to the same tasks, which he has us fulfill for our time." Any reservations about being a minister? Yes, absolutely. And yet, here's what I know. God's call is on each one of us to be the hands and feet of Christ wherever we are. At this moment, we are planted at First Christian Church in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And the good news today is this: our reservations don't condemn us to sit still or not move forward or to be ambiguous or to be fearful about doing things in new ways or new places. We can do things of consequence even if we don't know what the next day is going to look like. We can do those things today because here it is, the day, right in front of us. Despite our reservations about serving God, our feet can still take us to places that are important, and we can serve wherever we find ourselves. I mean, we all want to be like Simon and Andrew and James and John. We want to go to work for God immediately, if needed, to share the good news of God's love, to worship, to inspire, to educate, to inform, to edify, to lift up, to engage other people with the truth that we know, and to be hospitable and share our community with people who need it right now, wherever we are. And that's the good news today, is that we can. We can do those things. We can emulate and imitate, invite, and love. Every single one of us can proudly, deservedly wear one of these, because we've been called by God to serve where we are, to be Christian, to be a minister. I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll also find the elements of communion. A little piece of bread, a little cup of juice. And that in these things you'll be reminded of the sustaining love and grace, the power of God to invite and to embrace our response. We have good news to share, you and I. So as we eat this bread and drink this cup, may we remember the one who shared it with us. And may we gain the strength from these elements to do what we can where we can. Gracious God, send us into the rest of this day and into this week, having been reminded of your invitation for us to serve, for us to love, for us to follow. Help us to know the right thing to do wherever we are, and to do it in your name and with your grace and your hope. Amen.